Hello everyone and welcome to Saturday. If you watched yesterday's vlog, you'll know that today I'm doing a video about YouTube. Specifically some of the new problems that have cropped up on YouTube in the last few months, and a major one that has cropped up, I guess, in the last week or two. This is going to be known as the limited or no ads problem, because it is a problem. It heavily affects creators, and in a roundabout way it can affect you guys as viewers, because it could very realistically cause some creators to leave the platform. I am not a doomsday person. I'm not someone who looks at every little thing that YouTube does and say, this is the end. But this is definitely a situation where things are quite dire, and it could cause some people to leave the platform. I'm going to be approaching this as a creator, and someone who's been on the platform for about almost 10 years, and hopefully I'll be able to shed some light on what I've experienced and what's actually going on. So in order to discuss the limited or no ads problem, we have to back up quite a bit. We need to go back to early this year in like February or March, when advertisers started leaving the site. There was something that was known on social media, and it was a dumb name, but it was called Adpocalypse, and it was because advertisers were leaving YouTube, and this was big problem for YouTube because they lost a lot of money, but also for creators because creators get their money from YouTube. If YouTube's not making money, neither are we, which is kind of a problem. Now, I believe this actually all stemmed from like a newspaper article or an online article or something where people were highlighting the fact that there were ads running alongside controversial videos. One of the ones in question was one that PewDiePie had made, where he had paid someone in another country who didn't even understand what they were writing to write some sort of anti-Semitic message and hold it up on the side of the road, and then he made a video reacting to that. Sometimes people point to him like he was the one that caused all this, which is absolutely ridiculous, because even though he did a stupid thing, the fact of the matter is there are so many videos that are, controversial or whatever, that have had ads on them for a long time. So this is not something that you can point to one person and say, you did this. You can't point to one person or one video. This has been going on for a long time. God knows how long I've been able to load up a YouTube video and see, prank videos that were basically just straight up sexual harassment, and there's, a Coke ad running right next to it. So obviously brands don't want to be associated with specific types of content, and apparently they all woke up in February and March, realized that this was happening, and decided that they would leave the site. Basically, within the span of a few weeks, things got really bad. For YouTube, sure, but also for us. Revenue dropped off an incredible amount. It was actually kind of astounding. It was one of those things that normally January is like the worst month of the year, because in November and December advertisers spend all of their money advertising for Christmas stuff, and then they're out of money in January. This was one of those situations where I think it was either February or March was actually worse than January, which has never happened. In all of the years we've been on YouTube, that's never happened. And it was, I'll use the word frightening. It was a little scary. It was like, holy crap, what is happening? So this is what they called the Adpocalypse. Now, in response, YouTube had to do something, and fast. They had to get advertisers back on board as quickly as possible because they weren't making very much money. So they developed a system, an automated system, because there was no other way to do it. I mean, there's a bajillion hours of video uploaded to YouTube every day, so they had to make an automated system. An automated system that would look at every single video and decide what kind of content was in it. It would use the title, the description, the tags, the thumbnail. It would even look at things like the automated subtitle track. And it would also look at the comments that were made. It would take all of these factors and try to form some sort of picture about what this video truly was. Was it violent? Was it profane? Was it sexual? Was it controversial? It'd look at all these things, and the automated system would decide what kind of content this was. Simultaneously, they now offered these options to advertisers, which in theory is actually a really great idea. It allows advertisers, when they put an ad onto YouTube, to say, do you want your ad to run alongside violent content? And they could say, violent, no. Profane? Profane, that's fine, yeah. Sexual? No, no sexual. So it allowed them to make these sorts of decisions. Once again, in theory, that's not a terrible idea. The problem is, no one was getting a chance to say what video was what. It was an automated system trying to learn. You can imagine where this story is going. Anyway, so around the time that they did this, they also developed a new mode called restricted mode. And I think it was originally touted as being used for, like, schools and libraries, but because there was an automated system now grouping content into these categories, you could turn on restricted mode, which basically took anything that flagged into any of those categories and turned it off. So if you wanted to be in a library and use restricted mode so you could only view like squeaky clean stuff, then you could turn that on and anything that had been flagged with those categories was just out. Except it was an automated system, so it got things wrong. It got, you know, videos that were actually sexual or profane or violent or controversial and still kept them in, and God knows it put a lot of stuff that was actually fine and left it out. It was, you know, for all intents and purposes, not a great system. Now, when revenue was dropping wildly and things were very, very bad, people were wondering, you know, what was going on. They knew advertisers were leaving and things were bad, but there was no way to tell at all what your video was doing. Like if it had been grouped into one of these categories, there was no way for a creator to be able to see that information. Except you could turn on restricted mode. When you turned on restricted mode, you'd go into your channel and you might find something very scary. You might find that some of your videos were gone. You might find that all of your videos were gone. It was just a really bizarre situation where you could turn on this restricted mode and go in and actually see a little bit, opening a window about what was happening with advertisers and what was happening to you specifically. If your revenue had dropped off a lot, you could turn on restricted mode and see, oh yeah, well actually most of my videos aren't in here, that's probably why. Now for some people, this completely killed them. This was back in, you know, February, March, where all of this stuff started happening, and I remember reading one situation where there was a guy who made Call of Duty videos for a living. He was married, had kids, and that was what he did. He did YouTube videos about Call of Duty, and because his videos were violent, it basically flagged everything, and his revenue dropped like 90% overnight, and he had to stop. I mean, he had to stop. There was no other option. He couldn't provide for his family, so he was just out. And this is where I bring in the fact that I am super ultra grateful for Patreon and our patrons, because honestly throughout all of this, the boat has been rocking a lot, and Patreon is the only thing that we can feel, you know, stable enough to, like, that we can fall back on. And if anyone didn't have, you know, these alternate revenue sources, it's been rough. It's been rough even if you are a squeaky clean person. People know that we do a lot of family-friendly stuff, and the vlog would be one of the least controversial things at all. Well, guess what? The vlog's revenue has dropped a lot. So if the vlog's revenue has dropped, something that is, you know, very clean, very, like, not controversial, not violent, not profane, not sexual, then I can only imagine anyone who has, you know, any hints of these things, what they would experience. So this has been going on for a long time. Since early this year, ads have been down, revenue has been down, people have been freaking out. There's probably, you may have noticed some of your other favorite creators that didn't have Patreon accounts, maybe opened Patreon accounts. You may have noticed people that, like, were only kind of doing Twitch streaming, doing a lot more Twitch streaming. It's because everyone got really scared. We kind of continued on our merry way just because we were relying on Patreon, and we were like, well, this is a stormy sea, keep going. But this has been going on since February, March, and then about a week or two ago, YouTube finally rolled out the system to some people, it's still coming to others, that allowed you to see these videos, allowed you to know which videos they were. It still doesn't tell you which category they're categorized in, but it allows you to see which, you know, that your video is a part of this system. And they called it limited or no ads. And I actually got it one of the first days of ChefCon. And it was extremely depressing. Very depressing, because up to this point, I mean, you could log into restricted mode and you'd see that videos were missing. But I honestly stayed away from that because I knew that that would be very depressing. Now it was in my face and I couldn't get away from it. And at the time I had uploaded basically the entire week's worth of stuff for ChefCon. So I was looking at, I don't know how many videos. How many do we release a day? Like 3 times 7 is like 20, 21 videos, something like that. So I was looking at like 20-something videos, and I would say about 90% had this yellow icon. And that was the first time I'd ever seen this. It was the first time that it had been in my face like this. And it was basically like, well, now you have to deal with it. So that was, once again, depressing is a good word for it. However, YouTube also gave us, finally, after all this time, the ability to fight these things. The ability to request a manual review. And that was, I mean, that's liberating, but also they owe it to us. They owe it to us. You can't just make an automated system that's like, yeah, that's probably violent, that sounds profane. Oh, someone said the word boob in the comments, that must be sexual. Like, you can't make a system like that and then not give us any power. But they didn't for like 6 months. So yeah, things on YouTube have been a little wacky for 6 months, but finally we can see what's happening within our own video lists and we can respond to these things directly. However, there are still some problems because of course there are. So now, whenever you upload it, it's hard to tell what's going to happen. It could just get a yellow icon. Now if it does, it's most likely pulling that from the subtitle track, or if it can see visuals somehow, then it's pulling it from the visuals. It's probably not pulling it from anything else because you haven't filled out the metadata. So what I do is I'll fill out the metadata and I'll hit save, and then if it was green before, I'll give it a sec because it might be turning yellow. It might be turning yellow because of something I wrote in the description or the tags or whatever. Usually it's just yellow from the start. So if it turns green, then, you know, cool, things are good, but it could turn yellow, or it may just start yellow. What you do is you go over to the monetization tab and there's a button that's like request manual review. And when you hit that button, it comes up and says, as long as your video gets 1,000 views within 7 days, we will manually review your video. And I think it says that they'll get back to you within like a week. So the good news is they've been getting back to me sooner than a week. It's been, I'd say, a turnaround time of 2 to 3 days. The problem is, in those 2 to 3 days, that's when most revenue is obtained. Most people are going to watch your video in the first 2 or 3 days. But during that 2 and 3 days, that's when you have limited or no ads. It's very infuriating. Now, it's also important to say that limited or no ads means literally that, limited or no ads. It could mean that you actually get normal revenue, because there's a chance that the ads that are running against that video are the companies that were like, yeah, we don't care, you know, oh, it's violent, whatever, just, yeah, we'll run our stuff against violence. So there's a chance that you could be getting paid normally for a video. There's a chance that you could be getting limited ads, meaning that you get a few of those ads, but not anywhere near the amount that you normally would, and that seems to be the most of what I have experienced, where it's like you're getting some revenue on a video, but it is a lot lower than it should be. And then the other option is no ads, because they could just find no suitable ads to run along your video because your video is profane. Who wants to show a profane ad? Nobody? Well, I guess there's just no ads to run. So that's what can happen. I mean, there's a chance that you could make normal revenue. There's a chance that you could make no revenue. And from what I've seen most often, it's somewhere in between. So these are all bad things. Revenue has dropped a ridiculous amount. And it takes a few days for YouTube to get back with you. But things get even more bizarre. Because even if, this is ridiculous, but even if you request a manual review and they accept it and it goes green, there is a chance, and I've seen it twice already, that it can go back to being yellow. That is insane, because you have done a manual review. You have looked at the video. The video hasn't changed because we can't change the video. We can't do that. If we request a manual review and Todd at YouTube comes in and looks at the video and he signs off on it, then why on earth would it ever go back to being yellow? Because someone in the comments said boobs? That we don't control that? We have nothing to do with that. You can detect in your system that we haven't changed the title, we haven't changed the thumbnail, we haven't changed the tags. Why on earth would it go back to being yellow? So that's one of the things I'm a little upset about. The other thing I'm upset about is the fact that even though they do have some guidelines that they tell you about, ultimately there is a team of God knows how many people reviewing these things, and what one person thinks is acceptable, another person may not think is acceptable, and these people are playing the judge and jury, and that's very frightening. And the funniest thing happened, and I posted about it on Twitter because it's just completely humorous to me. There were 2 videos that got flagged. One of them was a Walking Dead episode. A Walking Dead episode that is, filled with violence and profanity. At one point, someone gets shot in the head on screen. I think the same episode, there was like a lynching involved. So there's a lot of stuff going down in that episode. In another video, at the same time, these things flagged at the same time. So great. It was a memorable moment. And for 50 seconds, Mao says, "Wee!" Those are the videos. They both were flagged by the automated system, and I did a manual review of both. And once again, manual review. Keep that in mind. A human person looked at both of these. One of them got accepted. It wasn't the Wii video. It was the 30-minute Walking Dead video where someone gets shot in the head. The other video, confirmed by manual review, denied. A human person looked at that video. No profanity, no violence. We're playing Halo. Our characters are holding guns, although they are never fired. Mao is saying, "Wee, we're going down like a tunnel." 50 seconds, denied. Now, you might be saying, well, why would they even accept Walking Dead? Well, here's the light at the golden light at the end of the tunnel here. As per their terms of service, as per their rules, in the context of a full video game episode, violence and profanity and this or that or the other controversial stuff is actually okay. That is what they said. And that's specifically for video games. And I know that they added that in there just because YouTube makes a ton of money from video gamers. They make so much money just because there's a bajillion people doing it, and they're all uploading long videos, and they're all uploading a ton of videos. I know a huge portion of YouTube's revenue has to be coming from people like us, because there's so many of us, and we're uploading so much content. So that's in their terms. As long as it's in the context of a full gaming episode, violence and things of that nature should actually be okay. And they've played ball, for the most part, on those rules. I've had countless episodes so far of The Walking Dead and Fallout get flagged, and I have fought and won nearly all of them. But there's been some that have been denied. And was there anything particularly special about those videos? No, not compared to the other ones. It just comes down to a situation of someone sitting at YouTube, and that particular day, that particular person decides, no, that's not acceptable. They're the ones that get to decide that, and it's crazy. I mean, it's actually crazy. And when that happens, when you get a thing that comes back and says confirmed, that this is denied, the best you can do is just hope for the fact that maybe that video will get closer to normal ads instead of not normal ads, But then you may look at it and be like, oh, it's getting nothing, That was great. So it's been scary. Now the good news in all of this is that at least for video gamers, that rule is in there, even if they don't always follow it. I have been able to fight and win most of my stuff. There's been very few things that have been denied. That being said, even the ones that get confirmed, again, they have to take a few days where they're in this state of limited or no ads, and that is when all the money is made in the first place. So this video exists to educate you, and it exists to let you know what's happening from a creator standpoint and why things have been so dire. And if you've noticed anything kind of weird over the last few months on YouTube in terms of people, like I said, starting Patreons or doing less content or trying to maybe do more content to compensate or moving to Twitch, that all makes a lot of sense because things over on YouTube right now are not great. And I'm glad, I'm super glad that we finally have the tools to be able to fight this. Because God knows how long and how many videos have been stuck in restricted mode that we haven't been able to do anything about. And you can't really go back and fight the old ones because they'll only look at something if it's made 1,000 views in the last 7 days. So anything old, if you're not getting viewership on it, regular viewership, then they're not even going to go bother to look at that. So I'm glad that we have the tools. It's ridiculous that it took them 6 months to give us those tools. It's just crazy. And I just want people to know what's happening. I want them to know what's happening. I want them to know why they're, us or other creators might be trying different things or doing different things. It's just because YouTube it has been for a long time, but now more than ever, YouTube is the Wild West. And there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air. YouTube wants it to be more stable, but they really dropped the ball. They should have, what they should have done is that this should have never been a problem in the first place. They should have done a better job policing their own content from the beginning so that advertisers never pulled out and they never had this problem. It's too late for that now. And I really do, I'm an optimist, but I really do feel like their automated system in time will get better. I do. But for right now, I gotta say that this is probably one of the worst times to be a YouTuber. It is bar none the worst time to ever start YouTube, because you're gonna be dealing with all sorts of problems. Probably a great time to start Twitch, if you're interested in that. But this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And as a reminder, thank you to all of our patrons for having our back. Because throughout this entire thing, I would be scared to death with all the crazy stuff that's been going on. And we've been fortunate enough that we have done such a variety of content that we haven't shoehorned ourselves into one particular thing. I mean, if you get shoehorned into like Call of Duty, and it's the Call of Duty thing that gets hit, then you're just done. We've at least have such a variety that like different things get hit, and we've been able to continue to stay afloat. But like, man, YouTube's crazy. Anyway, that's it. There's not really a happy sunshiny ending, other than for us personally, for our channels. I'll tell you right now that we are going to proceed with everything as normal. You're going to continue to get all the content that you know and love from us, and we don't have any plans to change anything in particular. We are going to ride this storm and weather this storm through pure will, but then also the backing of Patreon, knowing that we can fall back on that. And, we're just going to keep doing what we've always done. And I feel bad because for smaller creators, they do not have that option. And they are probably streaming on Twitch right this second. But YouTube's changing a lot. And I'll keep you updated on if anything changes more or if anything becomes really bad. But that's the state of things as of right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. Tomorrow will be not about YouTube, and we'll talk about more happy, sunshiny things.
Like Labor Day?
Like Labor Day. And in the meantime, don't worry about us. Right now, we are just in a state of get through the storm and continue to create awesome stuff. I'll tell you one thing. I don't like to ever feel like I'm shoehorned into doing something because someone else told me to do it. I don't like the feeling of like, oh, if you're doing a violent video game, you can't do it and you need to focus on more kid-friendly stuff or whatever. Like, if I want to play something, I want to do something, I want to be able to do it. And that's how I'm approaching it, and that's how I'm going to continue to approach it. So stay tuned for more violent video games on Stephen Plays. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. This is the wrong outro. I'm doing the Stephen Plays outro. Let's meet back tomorrow, shall we? It's a clear sign that I've talked too long.